Good morning and welcome. I now declare the ordinary meeting for Scenic Rim Regional Council Wednesday the 26th of March 2025 open. And I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners on the land on which we meet and pay respect to elders past, present and future. I believe we have one apology today from Division 4, Councillor Sanders. I would now like to turn to Councillor Moriarty for prayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's pray. Lord, we just give you thanks for this opportunity to meet in the chambers at Scenic Rim Regional Council this morning. We ask that you watch over us and guide us, that we will have your wisdom in decisions made for the good of our region, and that we will feel your presence throughout the process. We ask all of this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councillor. We now move on to public question times, and I do believe we have a question on notice, and we'll now hand over to the CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, we've received a public question or a question in public from Mr. Lindsay. Are you here, Mr. Lindsay? Okay. Mr. Lindsay has written, in response to the questions you have raised on behalf of Moorang Landholders Group, I'm pleased to provide you with the below information. Question 1. Are all properly made public submissions always received by council staff and responses formulated by them or by the submitter of the application? Response: all properly made submissions are reviewed as part of the administrative processing of an application. This includes recording the details of submitters for the purpose of serving the decision and appeal rights. As part of assessing a public submission, each submission is reviewed and common items raised are summarised in the officer's assessment report for response. In assessing the submission and common items, relevance to the planning scheme and common material, including any response provided by the applicant, is considered. Question 2. Are all supporting reports to an application, bracket, by an external consultants, close bracket, reviewed in detail by council staff to ensure technical accuracy of data therein before the conclusions of those reports are adopted as being valid? Response: reports are submitted to council as part of an applicant's material. Reports submitted to council as part of an applicant's material must be prepared by a suitably qualified individual and in accordance with the relative standards and planning scheme requirements relevant to the nature of the matter, bracket, for example, noise, traffic, etc., close bracket. Council has a duty of care to exercise reasonable care and skill in the development assessment process, that is, in assessing whether the development application complies with the assessment benchmarks. This includes ensuring that Council has the benefit of the views of its officers who have the expertise to review and assess the relevant technical reports provided by an applicant. Council does not categorically accept a report's findings without applying a review and assessment, either by officers who have the expertise in the relevant areas or through an external peer review. Notwithstanding, officers do not always require the raw data which informs a report's findings and recommendations for the report to be considered sufficient for assessment purposes. Under Section 226 of the Planning Act 2016, it is unlawful for a person to provide false or misleading material to council, and significant penalties apply to such an action. This includes supporting reports provided by the applicant as prepared by a suitably qualified individual, for example, by a registered professional engineer of Queensland, bracket RPEQ engineer, close bracket. Question 3, does Council endorse the principle that once a document has been accepted as part of an approved application, it cannot be subsequently be altered after having been used to inform a vote by Council on that application? The response: material provided subsequent to the decision of an application has no bearing on the assessment undertaken or decision of that application.
Thank you, CEO. now move on to item 6, declarations of prescribed or declarable conflict of interest by members. I don't believe we have any today. And now move on to item 7 and announcements, and there are a number, if you could bear with us. Firstly, Vale, Peter O'Reilly, Ailsa Rowley and Robert Krause. Councillors, today we pause to acknowledge the passing of 2 individuals who have contributed substantially to our region, and also extend our condolences to our state member for the Scenic Rim on his family's recent bereavement. Earlier this month, the Scenic Rim lost a pioneering member of the Australian ecotourism industry, Peter O'Reilly, the patriarch of the O'Reilly family, more affectionately known as Big Pete, who passed away at the age of 91. With his brother Vince and their respective wives, Lona and Karma, Peter took over the running of the O'Reilly family's guest house some 70 years ago, and over the next 4 decades saw its growth and development as a tourism icon and a haven for wildlife and nature lovers alike. Peter was dedicated to introducing visitors to Lamington National Park, designing a world-first treetop walkway to enable visitors to experience the rainforest canopy, and also pushed for construction of a wheelchair-accessible track to Python Rock. During the late 1970s, O'Reillys, or the brothers Peter and Vince, and the O'Reillys family, along with Binnaburra Lodge, Canunga Information Centre and the then Bedezza Shire Council, embarked on an innovative roadshow promoting tourism in our region throughout shopping centres around the southeast Queensland and northern New South Wales, which featured demonstrations of abseiling, wood chopping and crosscut soaring. This led to what was considered the golden age of the 1980s tourist boom for our region. In 2001, his efforts in promoting our region and sustainable tourism and conservation were recognised with a Medal of the Order of Australia. Peter's legacy will live on, not only at O'Reilly's, but also across our region as ecotourism continues to grow and flourish. Today, we also pay tribute to a much-loved member of our cultural community, Ailsa Rowley, inaugural president of the Scenic Rim Writers Group, long-term member of the Bedezza Historical Society, and long-standing volunteer at the Centre Bedezza. She was much a lover of history as she was of literature, and combined these interests, writing a series of books and articles, many with a Scenic Rim focus. Ailsa's first book in 1994, Survival on Ambon, told the story of Bedezza's Les Hull, who was a prisoner of war during World War II and went on to found Hull Plumbing in 1946. Her own memories and recollections of a childhood in the 1940s were recounted in Technicolor War, in which she vividly described her evacuation south from Cairns, along with her mother, aunt and young cousin. As a highly regarded member of the Bedezza Historical Society, Ailsa is being remembered as a cherished friend whose commitment, knowledge and enthusiasm which were infectious. She will be sadly missed by many in the Scenic Rim and beyond. Today, we also extend our sympathies to our member for Scenic Rim, John Krause, and his family on the passing at the weekend of his father, Robert. A 4th-generation dairy farmer, Robert Bob Krause lived most of his life in Marburg and was a key member of his community, contributing to numerous local organisations, including as treasurer of the Marburg Rural Fire Brigade. He was a member of the Marburg Show Society for 58 years, serving as president for 11 years, and in 2022 was awarded the Medal of the Order of Australia for his service to the Marburg community. In closing, our heartfelt condolences to the families of Peter O'Reilly, Ailsa Rowley and Robert Krause. These remarkable individuals have left a lasting legacy. Thank you. I'd now like quickly just to, in terms of recent events and Cyclone Alfred, if I could now pass over to our Chair of the Local Disaster Management Group, Councillor Stephen Moriarty, who I guess navigated us through this event, and for his comments and where we are currently at with that recovery process. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor, and just acknowledging that my role in the recent weather event was as the chair of the Local Disaster Management Group, and it was the first time in that role, and it was a valuable learning experience. I'd just like to thank all the council staff, all our emergency services and all the councillors for their support throughout that, and I thought the response, generally speaking, was very positive, and all the decisions that were made in our Local Disaster Coordination Centre were collaboratively made with emergency services, our disaster team and council and myself, and with the sole purpose of keeping everyone in the region as safe as possible. And I'm very happy to report there was, to my knowledge, still no serious injuries or deaths as a result of that event. In summary, everyone will be aware that the cyclone did slow down significantly as it approached the coast and actually weakened. So we were very fortunate that across the region there was very few, if any, structural damage to structures. The most significant impact was with loss of electricity and associated loss of communication in some of our regions, particularly in the East Tambray Mountain, Beachmont and some of the valleys close by to there. Since the event, a lot of advocacy has gone in. We were very fortunate to have a visit by the Governor-General of Australia to Tambray Mountain, Her Excellency Sam Mostyn AC. Graced us with her presence on Tambray Mountain and was very supportive and offered her support in any way possible to the region. We've also been advocating at the state level to try and improve the resilience of our electricity grid. Every time we seem to have a storm or severe weather event, the loss of electricity through trees across power lines seems to be a major impact, and the impact is often for a week or more at a time. But at the same time, I acknowledge the outstanding work of Energex in getting us reconnected as soon as possible. But most of the impacts in these events are due to a loss of electricity. So anything that can be done in that space to improve the resilience of the grid, will greatly improve outcomes in future events. I also acknowledge the work that's gone into supporting our farmers in the west of the region, many of whom were impacted by heavy rain and or flooding, and the work that went into that to support those people. And also in activating hardship grants. Now, with regard to grants, I know they're always controversial and people question why some areas are included and some aren't. The only advice I can give to anyone who feels that they have been impacted significantly and are unable to access grants is to reach out to council, reach out to us here, and we'll do everything we can to connect you with the right grant for your particular situation. Beyond that, there's obviously, as there always is, there'll be a comprehensive debrief after the event and in the coming weeks, and any learnings from the event will be acted upon to ensure that we are even better prepared for future events. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you to you and your team in the work, and all the councillors and officers involved. Your dedication to, as Councillor Moriarty alluded to, the number one goal for keeping the people of our region safe during these difficult times. One further announcement or message that I would just like to briefly point on, there's going to be a lot more about this to come, is the announcement yesterday by the Premier and Mr. David Crisafulli in terms of the venues for the 2032 Olympic Games. It came as a shock and a disappointment for our region that had previously been slated. As people know, Lake Warralong is the home of Rowing Queensland and was previously the preferred venue for the 2032 Olympic Games. It was announced yesterday that that was to be awarded to Rockhampton on the Fitzroy River. We have seen responses since that time from Rowing Australia, from Rowing Queensland and other world federations that it doesn't measure up on any scale. And it has been a request for decades by Rowing Queensland to find the infrastructure and a home for rowing that will leave a lasting legacy for rowers in this state and this country. Unfortunately, Rockhampton will not, does not, and won't fit that bill. We here at the home of Rowing Queensland will continue to support Rowing Australia and Rowing Queensland in terms of, and we will look to work with the Queensland Government into making sure that the appropriate legacy and that event is held here in 2032. So thank you, and we'll see. There'll be a lot more said and a lot more to come as this all unveils. Thank you. I believe we have no petitions to be presented today. Thank you. Could I look for a motion for the confirmation of the minutes for the ordinary meeting 26th of February 2025? Councillor McInnes. Seconder? Councillor Cryer? Well, sorry, Councillor McInnes, do you want to propose and recommend a motion?
Yes, Mayor, I recommend that those minutes be adopted from the, I believe they're a true and correct record of that meeting, and recommend they be accepted.
Second, and Councillor Cryer. Those in favour? Unanimously carried. Thank you. I don't believe there is any business arising from the previous minutes. So I'll now move to item 11.1 and call upon Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to introduce item 11.1, commencement of a major amendment to the Scenic Rim Planning Scheme 2020, Planning Scheme Policy 5, Ecological Assessments, Amendment number 10. By way of background, a major amendment of the planning scheme is proposed to update Planning Scheme Policy 5, Ecological Assessment, to align with the changes proposed under Amendment number 6, matters of environmental significance and water resource catchment areas, in accordance with the process for amending planning scheme policy set out under the Minister's guidelines and rules. Council's endorsement is sought to commence the preparation of a major amendment, noting that the draft major amendment package will require public consultation of at least 20 business days, which, subject to Council's endorsement, will occur after the state interest review of Amendment number 6 is completed and the Minister has given approval to proceed. Should there be any significant changes made to the amendment as a result of public consultation, Council will be required to repeat the public consultation process. So, I'd like to move that Council resolve to prepare a major amendment to the Planning Scheme Policy 5 under the Scenic Rim Planning Scheme 2020 to be known as Amendment number 10 in accordance with the Planning Act 2016 and Chapter 3 of the Minister's Guidelines and Rules. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Seconders to the motion. Councillor Chalk. Councillor Hay, would you like to talk to your motion?
No, thank you, Chair.
Are there any questions rising or comments?
If I could, Mayor, just for the officers with regard to the amendment, I think for public consumption, what the intention of the amendment is, what are we hoping to achieve with this amendment, please?
Through the Acting General.
Yeah, through the chair, the officer, our acting manager will respond.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor, through the chair. The proposed new planning scheme policy is connected to the new Environmental Significance Code, which is a significant part of Amendment number 6. It currently doesn't align with the proposed Environmental Significant Code because there are both local and state significant environmental values that are described and mapped in the new overlay maps. These are numbered differently and they're described differently. And importantly, the assessment benchmarks that are contained in the performance outcomes and acceptable outcomes of the new code in the proposed number 6 have been updated to reflect the new legislation and different places on the maps where the environmental values are located. So we need to align the two together. So this amendment will mean that the new Environmental Significance Code will be implemented and Council's customer services to the applicants will be provided through that implementation. Applicants will not have the guidance required to be able to meet the assessment needs set out in the Environmental Significance Code, and one cannot have one without the other. So it'll implement that new amendment number 6, and it'll update all of those maps, and it'll guide the developers and the applicants in sort of showing how they can actually meet those benchmarks within the overlay for amendment number 6.
Thank you for that feedback. Can I ask another question?
Please, Councillor.
Is the likely outcome that we will have an ecological overlay similar to fire and flood overlays that will have similar impacts on development applications that might require land use for relatively minor development applications that will require a material change in use development application infrastructure charges as they do currently with fire and flood overlays? So my question is the impact likely to be similar to those existing amendments in the planning scheme?
Thank you, Councillor, and through the chair. As I understand, it's more around enhancing opportunities also for biodiversity corridors. It's more looking at developments which would affect the ability to establish those corridors as opposed to more minor types of development. The trigger mechanisms are prescribed in the overlay code effectively in terms of what's anticipated, but in the balance of the scheme, what's being sought under natural hazards type considerations differs from protection of environment considerations. So this is effectively bringing in local and matters of state environmental matters and looking to, in the first instance, avoid that for development, so encourage it in other areas, or be sympathetic to those environmental matters.
So obviously I'm raising the matter, just it seems like particularly say for rural landholders and others, that the more constraints we put on land use and the more corridors and more overlays we have, the less ability landholders have to utilise the land as in a manner as they see fit or best fit. So it's, I'm very concerned with regard to this amendment. The fact that it has to go to public consultation, I'm happy to support it for this motion because it does need to go out to public consultation, which needs to be considered. But I'm just raising that concern because the more overlays, the more constraints we put on landholders, it's becoming more and more increasingly difficult for landholders to utilise their land in a profitable and, a way that allows them to keep their properties and maintain their land.
Productive matter. Thank you. Did you want to respond?
Provide further response. Thank you, Councillor. So the current agenda item is strictly just for the planning scheme policy to inform the overlay code and how it would be triggered under the scheme. So for this to advance right now, it's not necessarily providing any further hindrance or anything that's subject to a separate scheme amendment. This is strictly just the policy document which would sit behind it.
Please, councillor.
Yeah, I've got a question and along that line, but then I note on councillor Hayes' introduction of this, that the state is, I shouldn't say forcing on it, but we're required to follow the state's lead on this, I take it. And or have I misinterpreted that, or is it a requirement of the state that we have to do this?
Thanks for your question, Councillor, through the chair. The planning scheme policy supports the new amendment number 6, which is the environmental significance code. So one doesn't really work without the other. So it's not that it's necessarily a requirement of the state for us to do this particular amendment. It's just we're doing it because the existing code doesn't match with the new proposed. Sorry, the existing planning scheme policy doesn't match the proposed code that we're looking at in Amendment 6. So the two of those two will go together.
Any further questions? Anyone wish to, well, councillor Hay, do you wish to talk to your motion?
No, thank you, Chair.
Anyone wishing to talk against the motion? Nothing further, then I put a motion to the floor. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And now turn to item 11.2 and call upon councillor Hay.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to introduce agenda item 11.2, material change of use 24/117, development permit for a material change of use for a dual occupancy located at 26 to 32 Witches Chase, Tambourine Mountain, described as Lot 1 RP 172432. Council is in receipt of an application for that development and it has gone out for public submission, and one submission was received from the adjoining neighbour, and I will talk to that further in this item. Okay, the site is located within the rural residential zone, rural residential A precinct, under the Scenic Rim Planning Scheme 2020, as amended 30 June 2023. In accordance with table 5.5.16.2 of the planning scheme, the application is categorised as impact assessable, with the assessment benchmark being the entire planning scheme. And the site is also subject to and located within 8 overlays which have been considered as part of the assessment. And I would just at this point like to go straight to the motion, which is in 3 parts. Thank you. Part 1, Council receive and note the report titled Development Application MCU 24/117, Development Permit for a Material Change of Use for a Dual Occupancy located at 26 to 32 Witches Chase, Tambourine Mountain, noting that the wording in the printed agenda contains some additional words which need to be removed, they being N62 Bartle Road, Tambourine Mountain, which is a different location, formerly described as Lot 1 RP 172432. 2, Council approved development application MCU 24/117 and granted development permit for a material change of use for a dual occupancy, subject to conditions contained in section recommended conditions of approval of the report. And 3, Council note that any subsequent requests excuse me, for a negotiated decision notice and or further change applications to the approval of MCU 24/117 will be processed, I think the word should be, or will proceed, via delegated authority where the change would not significantly alter the original decision.
Will be processed. Okay. Are you happy with that? Thank you, councillor. Could I have a seconder to the motion? Councillor Moriarty. Councillor Hay, would you like to talk to your motion?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I've read the extensive objection submission prepared by a qualified town planner, which was submitted on behalf of the adjoining property owner. Whilst only a potentially consistent use, I could not identify any inconsistencies with the planning scheme. It was good to see that the original application, which included a second access driveway, was modified to utilise only the existing driveway. Given the size of the property, which is 2 hectares, and the very close proximity to the proposed dwelling on the to the existing dwelling on the adjoining property at 34 to 48, which is Chase, I am concerned that the location of the proposed second dwelling will possibly have amenity issues for the neighbour. And if we could just bring up page 20, please.
You're right. If everyone could just bear with us for a moment, please.
Yes, please. As you can see from the diagram, this is an irregular shaped property with the existing dwelling on the proposed site down in the bottom triangular part of the property. The existing dwelling on the neighbouring property, which is the large white structure you can see very close to the boundary, the proposed second dwelling is, I believe, located adjacent to that in that open space. I'll ask the planners just to confirm that in a moment. But given the size of the property, I think it was, whilst it meets the minimum setbacks on that western boundary there on the left for the proposed dwelling, I'm just concerned that given the size of the property, there could have been more consideration given to the impact on the neighbouring property given its very close proximity to the boundary as well. So we're now going to have on 2 large properties 2 dwellings that are very, very close together. And whilst I note that there is now a requirement in the conditions for some amenity barrier, I just have issues about the reasons for the siting of that dwelling so close to the existing dwelling on the neighbouring property. I'd just, through the chair, ask for a comment from the planners, please.
Through the chair, the setbacks of the second dwelling have been considered. The dwelling is in the northwestern corner of that site, and it's set back approximately 20 metres from the road boundary. 5 metres is the closest setback from the western side boundary, which, as the council notes, is nearest the house on the adjoining lot. We have considered the setbacks and they are consistent with those expected in the rural residential A precinct, so that's why it's considered to address the amenity concerns. If you build a house on a rural residential block in that precinct, you can set it back based on the height at the amounts required. They've given us a 5 metre setback, which is required for buildings 4.5 to 7.5 metres tall. And I guess in acknowledgement of the submission, we've asked for an additional landscaping to be provided to try and address some of those visual impacts So we've asked for that along the southern and the western boundary so that vistas from the dwelling adjoining can be softened through the approach. Of course, the dwelling house design's been considered as well, and for those reasons, that's why it was considered to comply.
Thank you. And equally, I guess it runs both ways, doesn't it? Thank you for that comment. Councillor?
Yes, I did previously ask in briefing as to whether there could be a condition imposed on the proposed dwelling that it not be utilised for short-term accommodation I haven't really had an explanation about that. Given that the planning scheme is designed, for Tamborine Mountain at least, to limit future subdivision, we're now seeing a plethora of applications for second dwellings, granny flats, cabins, you name it, which is basically a way around the planning scheme. So, and I do note that in a very close proximity to this development, there is now another property with a proposed dual occupancy a short distance away on the same road. So I think we're going to see a lot more of these, but I just struggle with the fact that the existing dwelling contains 5 bedrooms and the proposed dwelling contains a further 5 bedrooms, and I'm wondering if there is the ability to impose a condition where the dwelling cannot be used for short-term accommodation to protect the amenity of the area.
Thank you, councillor, and through the chair. As officers, we did consider the ability to impose such a condition. So we have done it in the past for secondary dwellings, not dual occupancies, because there is provisions on the scheme that for a secondary dwelling, it's anticipated it's used subordinate or in conjunction with a dwelling house. So there's some consequential elements if that's being used for short-term accommodation, it doesn't achieve that underlying definition anymore, or there's infrastructure charges which are potentially being unrealised by council. However, in the instance of dual occupancy, it does attract infrastructure charges regardless of what purposes could be potentially used. And the scheme does envisage short-term accommodation holiday home as a separate development, not with requirements. So there's very limited nexus to any other provisions in the scheme where we would be able to impose such a condition. There was one example on a previous one which council has resolved on, which we did impose a condition similar. However, that was in relation to concerns about a detached extension as well, which was a studio, and concerns that potentially could occupy by 3 different groups at a point in time. So that's where we reinforced that underlying condition, dual occupancy definition. However, I'd be concerned that we would be up for challenge if we were to impose such a condition on the applicant, given that the scheme does anticipate that type of use as of right.
Thank you. I'm concerned that we're now going to set a precedent where we're going to see many more of these as a way around the planning scheme to create short-term accommodation.
Well, hopefully it's pretty clear in terms of the definition between dual and, help me out quickly.
Second dwelling.
Second dwelling, thank you. It escaped me for a moment. Thank you, councillor. Is there anyone wanting to talk against the motion or any further questions? Nothing there. Councillor Hay, do you want to then?
No, thank you, Chair.
All right, on that basis, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour of the motion? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And now turn to item 11.3 and call upon Councillor Chalk.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Today I'll introduce report 11.3, which is titled Change Representations for RAL 23/040. Approval to reconfigure 2 lots into 171 lots at Hoya Road, Boona, at lot 5 RP 140139 and lot 1001 SP 334754. We'll take the report as being read and we've been briefed on this. So I'll move straight to reading a motion, Mr Mayor. The motion is that 1, council receive and note the report titled Change Representations for RAL 23/040. Approval to reconfigure 2 lots into 171 lots at Hoya Road, Boona, at lot 5 RP 140139 and lot 1001 SP 334754. And 2, council agree in part with the applicant's change representation for RAL 23/040 and issue a negotiated decision subject to the conditions outlined in this report and draft conditions. Negotiated decision notice RAL 23/040 V5. And 3, council note any subsequent requests for minor or administrative changes to the approval RAL 23-040 will be processed via delegated authority where the changes would not significantly alter the original decision. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Seconded to the motion. Councillor Cryer, thank you. Councillor Chalk, would you like to talk to your motion?
Not at this stage, Mr. Mayor.
Just given the complexities of the conditions and the changes through the CEO, could we request a summary from the planners in regarding to this application, and also out of public interest as well, to try and those change of conditions to try and crystallise an easy understanding for all. Thank you.
Through the chair, this request from the applicant is to essentially modify some of the conditions that relate to the infrastructure items. In particular, the upgrade to Hoya Road and how that upgrade occurs, as well as the key one, I guess, is the condition 30 relating to upgrade of the intersection at Hoya Road and Coronation Drive. So there are some other changes requested. Those are the key changes. The officers considered representations from the applicant in relation to these changes. So in essence, it is determined that it is potentially unlawful for council to require an applicant to upgrade state infrastructure, which is why officers are supporting the removal of the condition 30 to upgrade the intersection, which is a state-controlled road. In terms of the condition relating to upgrading Hoya Road, there was some changes in the way the mechanics of that condition works. So it's been split up so that the extra payment part occurs for the upper end of Hoya Road, and then there's the other upgrade occurs under a different section of the Act, which is offsettable. And there was also condition changes in relation to the stormwater detention on site, ensuring that essentially treats the whole catchment because it's deemed to be trunk infrastructure. I think I'll leave it there, if that's okay.
Thank you. Just a very quick question on page 59, if I may, where you talk about the extra trunk infrastructure for Hoya Road. And in your proposal, A, must pay to council extra truck infrastructure costs to the amount of $2,200 per linear metre, and then comma, unless otherwise negotiated with council. Is that is that necessary? I mean, you've drawn a line in the sand. What does that actually mean?
Through the chair, the Act allows the applicant to, well, first of all, it requires that we must state a dollar value, which is very difficult at the preliminary stages of a proposal. The Act also allows the actual costs to be negotiated based on things like tenders and quantity surveying and things like that. And in this case, because Hoya Road is partly wide, halfway down, we understand that there will be some common sense in terms of applying a reasonable rate based on what the actual cost is. So the intention there is to reflect the real costs and allow council to work through that with the applicant and operational works stage.
So is that a minimum, or because you're allowing a negotiated? Okay, so can we amend that to reflect that the position for the ratepayer can't go backwards? It's a little, in my mind, it's a bit ambiguous. That's what I'm concerned about.
Through the chair, would we be able to, would council be feel more comfortable if we include a statement in that condition to say that the cost reflects the actual costs at a minimum?
At a minimum, definitely. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, through the chair, we could just go to page 48, please. Yes, thank you. Through the chair, could the officers just talk us through what that change is? I was a little confused with that diagram and the wording. Thank you.
Thanks, councillor, and through the chair. I believe the image we've got, I'll just find where we are. So what page? Yep. Yep. So apologies, the figure 3, which it follows this one, just the little red highlight is indicating in the wrong location. It's actually the corner of that property. And if you look to the blue highlighted area, it effectively allows for the continuation of those stormwater flows to follow stormwater easement on the back of those properties to channel it to road reserve. So it's part of the stormwater network. So that red circle highlight should be further to the west. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. If we could just go back to page 48 again, please. Under condition 1 and 2, update to plan, it says the applicant is seeking to update the plan to reflect more accurate stormwater drainage infrastructure to align with existing drainage and lot configuration at Bloomberg Street. The original development application came before council on the 24th of July 2024, and I believe we voted on what was before us at that time, which we took to be accurate and up to date. And I believe the vote was unanimous. So can you please explain how it is now that the applicant is seeking to provide more accurate stormwater drainage infrastructure, given that what we thought we were voting on back in last July should have been it, really?
Thank you, councillor, and through the chair. So through a negotiated decision process, certain new things can come to light, or there's further opportunity to review the matter. So being code assessment, at times we are bound by very short timeframes, and we're only can review and assess it based on the information available to us at the time. In the instance of this, I believe it's the applicants reviewed the surrounding development and highlighted the need for that. At the time of actual delivery of that stage, that would have been picked up as well in terms of when we saw those further operational works permits. So there is an opportunity to identify at that point in time. However, ideally we do look at the overall stormwater concept at reconfiguration of a lot. However, that more detailed delivery and how the network functions is further assessed at operational works permit.
Thank you.
Councillor Moriarty.
Thank you, Mayor. Just confirming, we're talking 171 lots in this particular development, but there will be further developments along Hoyer Road in the future? That's correct? So are we confident that the upgrades to Hoyer Road and the modifications to the stormwater will be adequate for those future developments?
Thank you, councillor, and through the chair. So under the current LGIP, the stormwater basin, which is identified on the property, is anticipated for those other developments to come forward under the current planning scheme modelling. However, under the current planning scheme, those other lots fronting Hoyer Road are currently outside the priority infrastructure area. So for development to be brought forward, it would be considered out of sequence. So we haven't done further detailed assessment in terms of what those infrastructure provisions would look like. Hence why some of these conditions, what are being proposed here, are effectively bringing forward certain types of infrastructure, which the applicants now compelled to deliver because it's outside of sequence, and that's where those other cost implications are. However, as part of our LGIP review, which is currently underway, we do review in terms of the priority infrastructure area to make sure that it's appropriate in terms of anticipating that future development across that corridor.
Because I guess the concern is if, you know, as more development comes on, whether the infrastructure that's being put in place will be adequate. So that was the reason for the question. I guess, and it's not just for this development of Hoyer Road, and it's for all developments going on in the region, all fairly large scale developments is seemingly going to become an increasing issue, whether the infrastructure that's put in place for stormwater and/or roads will be adequate and sufficient given the future growth. So that's why I raised the matter.
I can speak additional to that. And thank you, Councillor, and through the chair. So the scheme does have the planning scheme policy for infrastructure design as well, which does prescribe certain standards. And then we differentiate between trunk and non-trunk infrastructure as well. So trunk's effectively what we need to plan for as a council to anticipate the overall demand on more of those higher roads or those higher order stormwater infrastructure. However, non-trunk infrastructure, which is to service an immediate development, has its own provisions as well in terms of what it falls into within the road hierarchy based on anticipated vehicle demand, as well as infrastructure for around stormwater, so detention basins to make sure that it gets brought back to non-worsening. In the instance of this one, it does have a trunk basin identified there, which they need to deliver, which anticipates further development beyond their site. But also it's addressing their stormwater demand on that infrastructure as well.
Thank you. Any further questions? Anyone wishing to talk against the motion? Councillor Chalk, did you want to sum up?
No, we've had a lengthy discussion. I think I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Turn to item 11.4 and call upon Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to introduce item 11.4, policy review, tree management on council-controlled land. I take the report as read and assume that everyone has also read the 3 attachments that are applicable. Given some of the events that have come out of the recent cyclone Alfred, I do propose to move an amended motion, which is to defer this item to a future council meeting, given that I think there are some areas that need work. Thank you. So I just move that this item be deferred from this agenda and be resubmitted as an agenda item at a future council meeting. Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Seconded to the motion, Councillor Moriarty. Thank you. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I'll put that to the floor. Those in favour? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor. Now turn to item 11.5 and call upon Councillor Cryer.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to introduce report item 11.5, Council Monthly Financial Report for February 2025. I take this report as read. The monthly financial report provides information on the actual to budget position at the financial statement level where key performance indicators provide key summary financial information. I'd like to move to the motion now. Option 1, that Council receive the monthly financial report for February 2025.
Thank you. Seconded to the motion. Councillor McInnes. Councillor Cryer, would you like to talk to your motion?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just through the Chair, in regarding the summary of the monthly financial report for February 2025, could I have a brief explanation on with the net operating surplus being 3.92 1.26 million is quite subsequently increase of being 14% higher than the budgeted expectations, and it's almost doubling last month. So I'm just wondering if there could be a brief explanation of how the operating expenditure has come to be lower than the budgeted expectations and also quite significantly lower than last month's, with being 1.8 million.
Thank you, Councillor Cryer. Possibly, and I understand we take the report as being read, but I just think for the benefit, for those online, for those in the gallery, and the benefit for everyone for the record, if we could just extend that just to the CEO, a complete summary, a run through of the financials, Councillor.
Thank you.
Through Mr Mayor, I'll ask the coordinator, Andrew.
Thank you, and through the chair. Just first of all, a summary of the overall financial position as per the report. So overall, the financial results of February 2025 reflect a stronger than anticipated operating performance, with a net operating surplus of 3.9 or 14% above budget expectations. This surplus was primarily driven by higher operating revenue from increased fees and charges across various services, largely plumbing services, planning applications. Variances from operating expenditure reflect the number of vacancies across the organisation, so we have lower employee expenses, delays in the resheeting program due to the weather, delays in ICT security enhancements and the system modernisation project. With respect to capital, capital expenditure was significantly lower than budget, mainly due to timing delays in the DRFA works and delivery of fleet plant items. Although in terms of invoicing expenditure, the overall program is $16 million behind expectations. Commitments and orders for $32 million have been raised, indicating there are still some delays in the supply chains of goods and services. With respect to cash, the overall council maintains a healthy cash position of $57 million, bolstered by the higher operating surplus and deferred capital outflows. In terms of the specific question asked, so the movement from the January report to the February report. So the January report was prepared using the September budget review budget as the comparison budget, whereas the February report uses the December budget review as the comparison budget. So this was not made clear in the report. So thank you for raising it, and I'll make sure that it is highlighted in future reports as to when the budget changes and exactly which budget we are comparing it to each month. So the December budget review had some adjustments in it that reduced the variances in employee expenses allocated to capital, both due to vacancies and depreciation expense due to the 2024 end of year valuation. The net effect of these are to make the variances in material and services, so the $1.3 million underspend in the February report, stand out more. And despite the adjustments in the December budget review, employee expenses are still further under budget, $400,000 due to vacancies that weren't adjusted for. Does that explain the question?
Yes, thank you. That's very good. Thank you.
Councillor Moriarty.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment, if I could, especially around capital expenditure, with 16 million, 27% lower than budgeted expectations. I understand there'll be reasons for that, and some of those reasons have been outlined, but it would be remiss of me not to express my concern about the lack of delivery of some capital items, many of which were announced with some fanfare when the budget was delivered last year, and with 3 months to go till the end of the financial year. So are we expecting a flurry of activity to get some of those things delivered in the next 3 months, or are we more likely to be looking at a carryover of things uncompleted?
Thank you for your question, Councillor. Through the CEO.
Through Mr Mayor, I'll ask the Acting General Manager to respond, please.
Through the Chair, thank you for the question. Yes, in relation to the underspend, it is predominantly due to a lot of wet weather in December and the recent wet weather here that have delayed a number of projects being finalised, particularly in some of our, or commencing, particularly a couple of cases where it has also been externally funded. So a couple of bridge projects of Kingoon, which has been delayed, in the commencement of Coralbin Bridge by a couple of months from the commencement of that point of view. We are working with our contractors and our teams to accelerate, and the other one with that is, of course, our DRFA work, where in some cases after an event we have to go back and reassess that damage so we can follow the QRA process from there. We are working with our contractors and teams to accelerate where we can. There are a number of purchases that are in the system awaiting delivery, and some of those lead times that we were hoping wouldn't be as long are longer than first due. So there is a possibility of additional capital projects that will be carried over, but a lot of them, they are in process, or in case of external funding that we've just recently signed the funding agreements and started that procurement activity. And a lot of that procurement activity will finish before the end of the financial year, but the final delivery of that will occur in the preceding, in the following, financial year.
Thank you. Councillor?
Yeah, thank you for that explanation, Acting GM. Yeah, just raising the issue because I'm sure many of our ratepayers are expecting things, if not already have to be done, to be done on time and on budget. So I know the weather often comes up, but we've also had periods of sustained fine weather where work could have been done. So I just think it's important that we are aware of the reasons why things aren't being completed, but also making every effort to expedite completion of those projects on time and on budget. Thank you.
And also the implications for setting the next year's budget.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions or comment? Councillor Hay?
Yes, thank you, Chair. On page 113, we've got item number 729157, contractor or agency staff. The year-to-date revised budget is 323,000, but the year-to-date actual is 725,000, which is an increase of $402,000. Could staff explain the reason for the increase and in what specific areas within council do those requirements for contractor or agency staff fall? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Mr Mayor, Coordinator.
Thank you for the question, Councillor, and through the Chair. So the following sections are the major users of the contractors, and the main reason is just due to vacancies, the backfilling of vacancies. The main sections being human resources, the gender manager, people and strategy itself, IT, facilities maintenance and road maintenance.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Comment? Anyone wishing to talk against the motion? Did you wish to talk to your motion, Councillor?
No, thank you. I think that's a very clear explanation of every question. Thank you.
Thank you. I put the motion to the floor. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now turn to item 11.6 and call upon Councillor McInnes.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to introduce 11.6 Draft Corporate Plan 2025 to 2030 Community Consultation. A bit of background on this. Council did spend a couple of fairly big days, 3 days in total, I think it might have been, going through this, but it's important that we go out to the community and see their views on it, and I really hope it improves and increases the participation from the community, because this is let's say, the Bible that we work by, and it's, and we spend quite some time doing this corporate plan, and it's it's in the community interest, we believe, but it's always good to hear from the community. So as such, we have a plan to go out to the community. I take it councillors have read the report, and I'll just move to the recommendation, and that's that one, council endorse the draft corporate plan 2025-2030 for the purpose of community consultation on the plan during April and May 2025. 2, council delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer to make minor grammatical and formatting changes to the draft corporate plan 2025-2030 if required after its endorsement and prior to publishing on the Let's Talk Scenic Rim website for public access, noting any such changes will be advised to councillors prior to publishing. And 3, council note that should the final version of the corporate plan 2025 and to 2030 be adopted later this year, it will replace both the community plan 2011 to 2026 and council's current corporate plan Scenic Rim 2026. I so move, Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy. I call upon seconder to the motion. Councillor Chalk, thank you for that. Councillor McInnes, would you like to talk further?
No, I don't think so. It is all there, and it's about, as I said, sorry, it's about communicating with our ratepayers on this.
I'd just like to add a couple of comments if I may quickly. Sorry, Councillor Cryer.
I could do it after your
No,
comments.
please.
Okay. I'd just like to note that I'm glad that Tambourine has now been listed in the unique towns and villages. Thank you. And I just wondered if there was the amount of growth about to hit the Scenic Rim had been further defined.
Through the CEO.
Through Mr Mayor, I'll ask the acting manager to come forward, but I believe it's already recorded in some of the stats titled "Did you know?" But I'm more than happy to be corrected by the acting manager.
Thank you, CEO, through the chair. I can confirm we have included some additional information in the corporate plan under the planning and placemaking section, some indicative figures estimating growth, and to support the consultation we will also be including some background statistics for community to have that setting the scene for that growth. Thank you.
Just to add, I suppose, for the public, this report went before a briefing. Some of those issues were raised to provide further information about the growth, because it's very important to the public. I think that's in the mind's eye, where we are heading in terms of growth of population and where that growth is actually occurring. So the council has raised the proposition of giving some more time and information in regard to that corporate plan, and that's where that question really arises from. Councillor Cryer.
Thank you. I'm happy with that answer. Thank you.
Any further questions? Comment? I'd just like to very quickly echo the words of the Deputy Mayor. It's a very important document. Firstly, there was a lot of time put into it, and I'd like to thank the officers involved that supported the councillors. It was the first time that I'd been through that process, so working with the council executives and administration on that was greatly appreciated. It was a truly supportive and highly professional exercise, so thank you. But again, the Deputy Mayor's words to the public engagement in this consultation period is so important, because the people out there in the Scenic Rim, this is your document. This is where you want the organisation to, the direction it heads in the next 5 years. So the more that engage and have their input, the better. And thank you for those words. Anyone wishing to talk against the motion? Councillor McInnes, you want to talk?
only I'll add that just for those listening and in the gallery, the dates that is intended to go out to the public is the 30th of April in Beaudesert, 1st of May in Boona, and 6th of May in Tamborine Mountain. So give people a heads up, but it'll be well and truly advertised in the coming weeks. But for you to put it in, people to put it in their diaries. Nothing more to add now.
Thank you, councillor. I put it to the floor. Those in favour of the motion? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We have had two reports have come late to council, and it is for the consideration of the members whether or not they would accept those reports. So I will require a motion for that. Are you happy if I propose the motion? Yeah. It doesn't matter. No. I'll propose the motion that in accordance with clause 4.2 of the Standing Orders for Council Meetings Council Policy, Council accept the following reports as late items to be considered at this ordinary meeting and be included in the minutes of this meeting. 11.7, 2025, the Long Sunset Update. 11.8, 2024 to 2025 Regional Events Sponsorship Program. Application from 2025 Scenic Rim Clydesdale Spectacular. Can I look for a seconder to that motion? Councillor Moriarty. Pretty straightforward. I'll put that motion to the floor. Those in favour? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. So we'll now move to item 11.7 and call upon Councillor Cryer.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to introduce item 11.7, 2025, the Long Sunset Update. In December 2024, Council approved an interim sponsorship of $100,000 towards the staging of the Scenic Rim Trail and the Long Sunset 2025, pending presentation of independent research outcomes and a full post-event report from the Queensland Music Festival QMF. This report provides an update on the outcomes associated with the delivery of the Scenic Rim Trail and the Long Sunset 2024, co-presented by Council in partnership with the Queensland Music Festival. The Long Sunset 2024 was held at Elysium Fields in Boyland across the weekend of the 1st to the 3rd of November. The music festival was presented as part of the Scenic Rim Trail, also incorporating the Taste of Country event at the Overflow Estate 1895. The goal of the 2024 events was to generate increased attendance and economic outcomes in line with those achieved in 2022. So based on performance and the agreed benchmarks set at the outset of planning, QMF are seeking Council to increase the interim sponsorship commitment of $100,000 made in December to $150,000. The Council staff to support this increase, but there are some conditions applicable. So I take the report as read and move to option 1, that the recommendation for the ordinary meeting is that 1, Council approve a Category 2 event sponsorship total of $150,000 for the Scenic Rim Trail and the Long Sunset 2025 in accordance with the Regional Event Sponsorship Council policy and corporate procedure. 2, the sponsorship is to be conditional upon A, Queensland Music Festival utilising $20,000 of this funding to improve integration and presentation of local Scenic Rim performers and artists, and to provide appropriate weather-resistant stall infrastructure for Scenic Rim producers and makers. B, Elysium Fields Aquas Farm being secured as the 2025 event venue for the Long Sunset, and C, Queensland Music Festival providing a scenic rim trail proposal for 2025 to Council, including further detail on the proposed 2025 trail of events and an update on headline artist negotiations, ticket pricing and planning for the long sunset. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Seconded to the motion. Councillor Moriarty. Thank you. Councillor Cryer, do you wish to talk to your motion?
No, not really. I think the event was quite successful last year as it moved on from the other years, which involved during the COVID period slightly. I think it's quite a great event to promote the Scenic Rim region to the rest of Australia and also the world, with some great statistics coming forward for attendance from other regions and areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments? I think through the CEO, I think it's worthwhile if we just explore, because there's quite a considerable amount of money for ratepayers' money to contribute to. If we can just call upon the manager to give us to remind our audience the reason for the long set, but also the contribution that it potentially will make to the region. So what is it for the ratepayer?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'll hand over to the acting manager.
Through the chair, thank you for your question. So the long sunset provides, from a visitor perspective, it provides a very good regional promotion, as Councillor Cryer mentioned. It also increases the visitation to our region, both for overnight visitor expenditure as well as day trippers. So it enhances our tourism profile, and we work with the Queensland Music Festival to try and get those visitors back into region. So it's an activation for both visitation and for our local audience, which we've got measurements in there for both of those audiences. And the idea is to keep those visitors returning throughout the year.
Thank you. And can we how would you summarise that return on investment?
Through the chair, so the return on investment is good, especially with the increase in the visitation from the 2023 event to the 2024 event, and we'll continue to work with Queensland Music Festival to increase those numbers, both focusing on the overnight visitor expenditure, so the overnight visitors to our region.
Thank you. Please, Councillor Moriarty.
Thank you, Mayor. Just my question is with regard to the amount of the funding. So I believe for the 2024 event it was $100,000, and the event was generally considered to be a resounding success. Maybe not resounding, but a success. I'm not sure the way to describe it, but much improved on the 23 with attendance. Was there 6,000 tickets sold, 24? So we're in that vicinity anyway. So my question is, if the 2024 event was considered a success and worth running again in 2025, why has council needed to contribute more this year than last year?
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor Cryer. So the amount of investment from the 2024 event to the 2025 event hasn't increased. So the amount that we're asking for the 2025 event is the same as the 2024 event.
Was it 150 last year?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So what are we moving forward then? Are we working towards self-sustainability for the event, or is council's contribution likely to just stay the same, increase or decrease in the future?
Through the chair, we are working towards other funding options and revenue sources to be able to fund this event. We did look into alternative sources this year without success, but we'll continue to and provide updates back to council if we progress with the 2026 event.
Thank you.
Councillors, any further questions? Councillor Cryer.
Yes, thank you. I just brought to my attention once again by Councillor Hay, in the briefing session, we had a budget where the income and the expenditure was the same. Has there been any update to that, probably in relation to the sale of event merchandise? Thank you.
Through the chair, thank you for that question. So we have sought clarification to that question. So the merchandise tent for the Long Sunset was managed by an external provider, so external to Queensland Music Festival, who retained a significant portion of the revenue from the merchandise sales. As QMF, or Queensland Music Festival, is a non-for-profit organisation, their goal is to not profit from the merchandise but to provide opportunity to other businesses.
So the amount of $92 is it?
Yes, so $92 is accurate.
Okay, it just seems a little strange that both figures match exactly, but still. But thank you for your explanation.
Anything further?
Yes, if I may, through the chair. Oh, it's more of a comment. I am pleased to see the inclusion of the Tanbury Mountain Arts Collective has been included in the format this year, so that will be a good boost to the artists on the mountain. Yeah, thank you for that.
Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to make an observation along the lines of that made by Councillor Moriarty, that I hope after the 2025 event we do a thorough evaluation looking to reduce the amount of council's contribution towards this event in future years. Thank you.
Nothing further. Councillor Cryer, did you want to sum up?
Well, in summary, I think that...
Sorry, just before we do, I'll just put, is there anyone wanting to talk against the motion? No? Councillor Cryer?
I don't think there's very much further to add. I think the event is, as I said, quite a good promotion for the region, and so happy to go ahead with this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Motion carried unanimously. Call upon Councillor Moriarty to introduce item 11.8.
Thank you, Mayor. I note that all councillors have been provided with a hard copy of the report, being a late item. And I take that the report as read. Oh, it was on my desk. Am I the only one that's received it? Yeah.
I'll ask. Councillor Hay, are you happy if we proceed? Given this has been debriefing.
Mayor, if we could just have a couple of minutes to refresh our memories, please.
Certainly. All right, councillor Moriarty.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to introduce item 11.8, the 2024-25 Regional Event Sponsorship Program application from 2025 Scenic Rim Clydesdale Spectacular. I'll take the report as read and move the recommendation as suggested. The council approve a Category 2 event sponsorship of $25,000 for the 2025 Scenic Rim Clydesdale Spectacular in accordance with the Regional Event Sponsorship Council policy and corporate procedure as follows. A cash amount of $16,020. B, an in-kind support of $3,980 towards the provision of waste bins by council. And C, in-kind support to the value of $5,000 of marketing and public relations services.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder to the motion? Councillor McInnes. Thank you. Councillor Moriarty, do you wish to talk to your motion?
Just to say, Mayor, that the move for this event from Boonah to Bow Desert hasn't been without some controversy and speculation as to the reasons for it, but I acknowledge that it's a wonderful event for our region and is a great attraction to the region, and there was a risk that the event could have actually been lost to the Scenic Rim if it wasn't moved to Bow Desert. So for that reason, I'm happy to support the motion as it stands.
Thank you. Councillor Chalk.
I'll probably just a note to that is that council wasn't responsible for the move. It was requested by the community organisation, and we assessed it on our parameters around our funding sources. So just so the public's well aware that council is not behind the move at all.
Councillor Hay.
Through the chair, just a couple of quick questions, if I may. In the conclusion in the report, it's stated that the economic return to the region for the 2024 Clydesdale Spectacular was just over $2 million, and that this investment made by council represents a return for the region of $80 for every dollar invested by council. Could we just have a brief explanation of that, please?
Through the chair, thank you for the question. So when we receive a application, we assess it based on the information provided. We also complete an economic impact modelling with a consistent summary, a consistent sum of modelling to ensure that all events are measured consistently and accurately, so that in the conclusion where it says $80 return for every $1 invested by council, so we analyse that for each event, and that based on the budget provided by the event organiser into the impact of economic impact modelling. That's how we come up with that conclusion.
Thank you. I'd just like to make an observation, if I may. Whilst council wasn't responsible for the suggestion to move the venue, I find it's very disappointing that the forever home of the Clydesdale Spectacular has been Boonah, and now we're relocating it, which is a little bit incongruous given the wire statue at Boonah. I hope we're not intending to move that as well. I understand the reasons. I've spoken to people from both sides, and I've come to understand what precipitated the move, and most of my questions have now been answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? I just might make a comment as well, just to support Councillor Chalk's earlier points. These are community events led by organisations or community volunteers. The founding of this event and what it has resulted in has been a great success for the people of Boonah and the greater people of this region. It has not been an event that has been run by council, and it has not been an event that is directed by council. These organisational and community events, council are here in support, and that is what today's motion is about. It is when situations like this do occur, and I do note Councillor Moriarty had an understanding that it was possible that the event could be lost to the region. Whether or not that was the case, it is really for the leadership of within those organisations and those community volunteers to face and articulate the truth and the situation to the people of the community as to what is going on. So there is a clear understanding for the people of this region why the move may or may not have come about. In this instance, council was clearly not involved in that move, but once we were advised, we were prepared to do the work to analyse the proposition that has been put forward before us today, and to sum up the support that we will give. In terms of the statute, that has also been raised by the Boonah Progress Association, which I am always concerned, again, about community organisations and the people that go to the efforts of putting such historical pieces or infrastructure in place for the community, that the original intention of that piece is lost down the track. So I've offered to have the records the council has provided that ensures to the people of Boonah that piece of infrastructure or art piece will actually stay in place, and have the true record of how it all came about and the costs and whose land it sits on there for the people to see. With that said, is there anyone wishing to talk against the motion? We'll put the motion to the floor. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, we're now arriving at confidential matter item 12.1. So I propose the following motion: that in accordance with council standing orders for council meetings policy and the provisions of section 254J subsection 3 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, council close the meeting to public to discuss confidential items as follows. 12.1, consideration for the purchase of land for future strategic purposes, closed under section 254J, subsection 3, subsection G, as discussions will be held about the purchase of the land. Could I have a seconder to the motion? Councillor Chalk. I put it to the floor. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And we will draw the session to close and return on the... Would you suggest half hour?
You might want to catch up with these guys. It might not make 11 o'clock. Sorry, 10. 11. Yeah.
We will go into close. We will return, attempt to return at 11 o'clock. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and welcome back. And council resumes into open session at 11:04, and calling upon Councillor Moriarty to introduce late item 12 confidential item. We need a motion. Could we have a motion from the floor? Councillor McInnes, seconded. Councillor Hay, those in favour?
Sorry, Mayor, I should have, moved the
Propose the motion.
motion that we now go back into open session.
Thank you. Seconded Hay. Put it to floor. Those in favour? Carried. Call on Councillor Moriarty to introduce item 12.1.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce item 12.1, consideration for the purchase of land for the future strategic purposes, close S.254J 3G. I'll take the report as read and I'll move the motion that council not endorse the purchase of the identified land for the future strategic purposes at this time.
Thank you. Could I have a second to that motion? Councillor Chalk. Anything address the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Anyone against the motion? Yes,
Yeah.
Councillor McInnes.
Just raising, visitors had gone, they're not waiting outside.
We know, we've checked on that earlier. Thank you. Anyone wishing to talk against the motion? I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. That now brings the ordinary meeting to the end at 11:06 a.m. Thank you all.